Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Malik B. He was a rapper and singer, and he died tragically. And they don't have his actual the reason for death, cause of death up yet. I'm going to be talking about some natal placements he has and some transits that may have been tied in to his death. First thing is first, though, I'd like to offer my condolences to the friends and family members of Malik B. Um, it's just terrible somebody to pass away at 47. I have to be fortunate at 50 that I'm still alive at this point. I guess I have to be grateful to God for subtle blessings. When you hear about all these people dying at such a relatively young age, it's just very unbelievable, and it's very devastating to say the absolute least. And again, the cause of death was not divulged or disclosed at the time of this video, but I'm sure they will be given updates, and by tomorrow we'll probably have a better idea and conception what happened. So I'm going to talk about some transits, and again, some natal placements and some transits to his natal chart that may have been tied in with his abrupt passing. And I may be able to speculate on some possibilities as to as far as the cause of death as well. Now, first off, again, he was a rapper and singer. He's got the sun in Scorpio. I couldn't find his time of birth online, but I had to improvise once again and do a solar/sunrise chart in which I put the sun at the same pointer position as the ascendant. The sun is in Scorpio, and it puts the moon in Aquarius. Now, if he was born very late, much later in the day, of course, he would have his moon would be in Pisces. Now, the solar sunrise time puts his moon looks like 25 degrees Aquarius. Now, the thing is, he was known as an innovator. Now, the sun in Scorpio, of course, could give very strong, powerful, even willful energy, and a person that has really that want. I mean, the sun is about what we want in astrology, and we want to have really to really it's really more about desire. I mean, when you talk about the sun in Scorpio, it's really about desiring, but at the same time there may have been a transforming energy with him, given that he had the sun, having the sun in Scorpio, and being able to attain some kind of power in what he was, in whatever it was he was going to do. Now, the moon in Aquarius, that's bringing that energy, a lot of that relentless Scorpio energy, and that emotional intensity and passionate energy. And I think the want to and Scorpio can want to express themselves passionately. The fact that he has the moon in Scorpio, something where he could be recognized perhaps as an innovator. Remember, the moon in astrology could be connected with what we want to be publicly recognized as. The moon, of course, is associated with the public, and he was seen as an innovator. There was something on, I believe it was like an Instagram post that was from the Roots, from the group that he had been in, that had stated that he was an innovator. And the thing is, it tells me his moon likely was in Aquarius as opposed to Pisces. But again, I don't have his time of birth, so it is speculation. Again, it is a solar/sunrise chart. Now, as far as any natal, well, I want to talk. Another thing I want to talk about, another indicator as far as the innovative ability. Now, he does have Uranus in Libra, and that is generational. But you're talking about being in Libra. Uranus in Libra can manifest by itself in some kind of innovation with the arts, which can include singing. He also has Uranus conjunct Venus, and in the solar sunrise chart in the 11th house of goals and aspirations and things that are group related. So it's not really surprising there. Venus, I mean, you're talking about Uranus conjunct Venus by itself can indicate, have some innovative ability in a lot of cases in something music related. The fact is, he actually has a stellium in Libra, which starts out with Venus in Libra. Then you're followed by Uranus and Mars. Venus is that need perhaps to make money. Uranus is something innovative. Perhaps there was a lot of electronic use in this in terms of the music. The fact that Uranus it comes after Venus, and then followed by Mars, which is an indicator to what actually drove him, what was the drive. This was a very driving force in him. Now, another thing, well, talking about now, we're going to look at some natal placements now. Yeah, well, looking at this and in terms of what may have played a role, it's likely more transits. I think in this case it may have played a role in his abrupt passing. But I mean, natally, he does. For the first one thing I'm noticing is that he does have. Looking at this, he does have natally Neptune in the first, which is really not really much of an indicator, because Neptune in the first could be a lot of things, but it can indicate in some cases that the physical body may be tied in with some kind of drug or alcohol use. Now, I don't know this at all, but Neptune in the first can give a little greater propensity for that, more so than in a lot of other cases. He also has in his natal chart, in the solar sunrise chart, he has Pisces on the cusp of the fourth house, and it's at 4 degrees, which of course is a critical degree. The fourth house in astrology rules the end of life. And Pisces, in some cases, Pisces, I mean, this could manifest in a lot of ways. Again, it could have been something drug or alcohol related, but it could have also been, I mean, could it have been the coronavirus? The coronavirus seems to be synonymous with the zodiac sign Pisces, because you're talking about Pisces it's about diseases, but ones that can't be eradicated or cured. He also had transit Neptune in the fourth house of the solar sunrise chart at the time of his passing. So that's an indicator of that dissolving, that dissipation of the end of life. You're talking about the end of life can be the latter part of one's life, I should say, can be subjective, but I look at it as approximately from age 50 to the time you pass. And he died at 47, so it was almost like that dissolving of that latter part of life. He did not really get to experience it, sadly. So another thing I'm noticing, as far as you're talking about, one thing as far as transits go, well, one thing that stands out, he does have transit Pluto not far from his natal North Node. And when you're talking about the North Node in transit, sometimes North Node, if it's involved in transit, can suggest issues that one may have to confront or address. Sadly, when you have Pluto in fairly close proximity to it, it could be about issues associated with death. It falls in that second house of self-worth and self-esteem in the solar sunrise chart. He also is going through the Chiron return in Aries. Now, the transit Chiron in Aries by itself can often indicate feelings of unworthiness. And he also had transit Mars not far from Chiron at this time. Mars can be, Mars is obviously the volatile, violent planet. Aries can be associated with gunfire. And I hate to think that he did himself in, that he did this, but I would not be surprised if this was a suicide. He also has in the solar sunrise chart in the natal placement, Mars is not far, is very close to his 12th house cusp, and Mars again can be, Mars can be associated with gunfire by itself. And he also has Mars is at a critical degree, at the 29th degree. And he also, it's in its detriment in Libra. Now, another thing he has too, I've noticed, okay, he does have Saturn in Gemini near the 8th house cusp, which indicates at the time of one's death. It can mean Saturn, conjunct the eighth house cusp. That could manifest in some feelings of despondency. Saturn in Gemini, even though it's generational, can sometimes manifest in somebody not really feeling quite satisfied intellectually. There could be overcompensation and trying to assimilate as much information about as many subjects as possible regarding manifold subjects, and constantly having to quench that thirst for knowledge due to a sense of lack. Hold on a moment, people. Now, another thing I'm saying too is that the ruler of his eighth house in the solar sunrise chart, that is Mercury, which is conjunct his Neptune, and the thing about that is that's another. I mean, Neptune is the planet connected with suicide, so it would not surprise me again if this was a suicide. I want to go back to the fact that he has Neptune in his first house. Now, the first house is the physical body. Even though this is a solar sunrise chart, the first house does represent the physical body, and that could be taken. I mean, when you have Neptune in the first house, sometimes it could manifest as being taken through suicide. He also has the Sun being in Scorpio at a critical degree, 22 degrees based on the solar sunrise time. And remember that the Sun is about life in astrology. Now, another thing I'm noticing too, he has transit North Node in Gemini is in his 8th house in the solar sunrise chart. Now, again, going back to the fact that the North Node, when it's in transit, can be about issues one may have to address or confront. This might have been, maybe there was some crisis he had been going through. The North Node could have been some psychological issues, being the 8th house, anything. I mean, it could be possible. But the 8th house is the house of death, and the North Node was transing in it at this time. And having Gemini on the 8th house cusp, I mean, in some cases that could manifest in a death. That could be where you're cutting off, some cases you're breathing. You're something that is requiring you to breathe. I mean, asphyxia. I mean, something like that. That is where sometimes Gemini on the 8th house cusp that's how it can pan out in some instances. I'm not saying in many, but in some cases, that's how that might actually, that's how it may manifest. But anyways, really not much more I really want to say as far as this goes. Again, it's just very sad that you hear, regardless of how he passed away, the fact that he did pass away at a relatively young age at 47 years old. And again, it does make me feel like, I feel very very fortunate to be alive at 50 years old. I think it's something where we take life often for granted. A lot of us don't really get to experience that latter part of our life, or even after 20, 30 years old in a number of cases. And I look at myself and I just have to be grateful to the grace of God that I actually made it this far, and I'm still, even despite having some physical debilitations, that I still have managed to make it. And it's just terrible when you hear about a situation like this, when somebody's passing, when it really, to me, it's just again, it's very devastating and very tragic, and it's just something, it's a shame that couldn't have been maybe possibly averted one way or another. So it's really that's really pretty much it, what I wanted to get at. There's really not much more I don't think I can say regarding his as far as his chart goes. I'm looking at it and just trying to see if there's anything else that I see on it. But as far as anything else that might have been tied into his passing, whether it's through transits or natal placements. But that is pretty much it. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.